Nayyera, when you're listening to this, you worked under Hillary Clinton at the State Department. You say that you did not hear much new in terms of the prescriptions of how to fight ISIS, what to do differently.
And this is part of the challenge that Trump is facing, right? He's looking at trying to do a reboot, particularly after making some really off-the-cuff, bizarre comments last week about how President Obama founded ISIS. So he needed to come out looking strong on national security. But it's really actually muddied the waters because he has not actually prescribed a single thing. No nation building, working with allies, targeted strikes. These are all things the Bush and Obama administrations have already done and are currently doing to attack ISIS. What he did map out were a series of simple statements that, in theory, appeal to his base, right, about how we have to stand up for American values. We can't let people in our country who don't support, who support bigotry and support anti-gay sentiment or anti-Semitism. The challenge is a lot of his base will not pass the test themselves that he is laying out for foreigners. So how do you balance that within the context of what Trump has been saying? I mean, we have seen so many in his Twitter feed about retweeting white supremacists. There was a whole Star of David moment that also blew up in his face. So there's he's still in that mushy space of policy that without the clarity, we can't really quite tell where he's going and what he's going to be trying to do next.
One thing we heard clearly, though, Pete, and I want you to weigh in on, is that this extreme vetting, we heard it in the soundbite that we played when I was speaking with Athena. What does extreme vetting mean to you?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I'm familiar with what Extreme Makeover Home Edition is, but I'm not as familiar with extreme vetting.
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think I want to tag on that. I want to tag on that balance word that was just used because I think that's an important point here. Is Donald Trump sees things very much in black and white. And there's not that balance in his rhetoric to say we need to be a welcoming nation that welcomes legal immigration. You know, I take this very seriously. Both of my parents are legal immigrants to this country. They came here to seek out a better life. He focuses just on the bad side of immigration, people who may be coming to the United States to do harm. That's important. We need a strong vetting process for sure. But I think he also needs to give the other side a little bit of time a day, too, to say we want people who have skills, who can help build our economy to come here, too, as well.
And in particular, in a time where we're talking about a businessman looking to be commander-in-chief, he really should have a better understanding and awareness of what visas and the travel, what that does for the U.S. economy, in particular because so much of his business has been reliant on partners overseas.
I want to ask you about one other big part of this. One of the kind of the things that was discussed that Donald Trump discussed yesterday, Mr. Secretary, was this ideological test. Nayyera was kind of pointing to it. A very basic question. When it comes to an ideological test of people coming into this country, do you think terrorists are going to tell the truth if they want to enter this country?
Well, you know, this isn't the first time we've had to ask that question. In the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, we were at that time engaged in a fight against communism in the Cold War, and we had a similar ideological test that still is in U.S. law.
Right, but in 2016, do you think that's effective?
Yeah, I do. You know, nothing is perfect, but it works like this. So you come to the port of entry, you go to the primary inspector, he says, all right, we're going to send you to secondary inspection, and then you sit down and you have a long discussion with someone. Now, and that person will look for any clues that this individual harbors any intent against the United States Constitution or security. Is it perfect? Is it possible that the immigration inspector might let somebody slip by? Yes, but you have a presumption that the individual does not get in unless certain boxes can be checked. And that right now is not happening. That's not happening at our border, and that needs to be happening again. Just like we're in a time of national crisis, just like we were in 1952.
Go ahead, Nayyera.
Well, I think this is a lack of understanding of what diplomats do every single day and what the State Department does at embassies around the world, which is they do extensive interviews, they do vet even before. The idea is to vet people before they even come to the United States. And there is a secondary screening already here at the United States when people come to the port of entry. So the challenge of somebody slipping through, I think, is more of the fear-mongering that we're hearing and seeing at the expense of people who legitimately have business interests or are supporting the United States. And harking back to the Cold War, and particularly the reference to commissions, is very dangerous to some of the other liberties that we hold dear as Americans. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric that is going to be very divisive and is not going to attract...
These are individuals who are not Americans. They don't enjoy those liberties until they get into this country. We have every right to stop someone at the border and say, no, you cannot enter this country until you assure us that you meet our criteria. We must do that to secure our country, and Trump understands that.
Let me ask you this. Yesterday, Donald Trump said this. A lot of people are talking about it. Importantly, Hillary Clinton lacks the mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS and all of the many adversaries that we face. Lacks the mental and physical stamina. You work for her at the State Department. When you heard that, what did you think he meant?
Well, I think he was reflecting a bit of trying to reflect back of the mirror of the criticisms that have been launched against him in recent weeks, which is the temperament argument that has been resonating not just among Democrats, but also with the 50 or so Republican national security advisors who sent out a letter last week saying he is not temperamentally fit to be commander-in-chief. So I think that's his way of lashing out, which we have seen him do otherwise. Now, there's a lot of things you can say about Hillary Clinton and a lot of questions and concerns that people do have, but temperament tends to not be one of them.
In terms of mental and physical stamina, Pete C., do you think Hillary Clinton, you do not support Hillary Clinton, you're not necessarily, you don't support Donald Trump either, but when it comes to mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS, it is not your typical wording someone will use in order to attack someone. Do you think Hillary Clinton has a mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS, Pete?
Well, this hasn't been a typical campaign season, but I think what both campaigns are doing is racing to the bottom. Not only did you have Donald Trump making those comments, but you also had Joe Biden on the campaign stump yesterday with Hillary Clinton saying that Donald Trump couldn't be trusted with the nuclear codes. Not the first time we've heard that, but everyone's racing to the bottom. These two candidates are not trustworthy in the eyes of voters. I think people would probably prefer that they weren't the nominees, but rather than an elevated debate about how we take this country forward, we're questioning people's mental stability. I think it's kind of a joke.
Can we have some fun really quick? Let's end this on a little bit of fun. Debate prep. The first debate is at the end of September. Politico's reporting that Hillary Clinton's campaign has a new job that they've basically posted. Who wants to play Donald Trump? Who wants to be Donald Trump in her debate prep? This is always a very fun game. I think like Nayyera.
I don't know.
You worked for her at the state. Who would you suggest?
Well, it's really difficult because who wants to have to say the kind of the torturous things about your boss's past to their face? So I think it's going to be very, very difficult to find somebody who can stand up to that. And certainly Donald Trump is a very unique debater.
Right.
And it's going to be hard to find somebody who can be as unpredictable as he is.
Note that Nayyera dodged that question very artfully. Secretary, you will not dodge this.
I've got an answer for you.
Who should play Hillary Clinton in debate prep?
Oh, okay, I was going to answer your previous question. I think Joe Biden should play Donald Trump. He's very good at unpredictable answers, and I think he can play the role. But that's Donald Trump's biggest strength, is unpredictability, as your previous guest said. Who plays Hillary Clinton? Ooh, that's a tough one. You'd probably have to find a female Republican U.S. senator who can capture Hillary's. I'm thinking.
Who's
I'll come up with one.
Supporting Donald Trump. Did you find that one?
Yeah, you've got that issue too.
Pete, any suggestions? You've been around this.
I'm not sure who plays Hillary Clinton, but I think there's no question for Donald Trump. It's either Darrell Hammond or Jimmy Fallon. Those two do it spot on.
Yes. You got to love it. Guys, great to see you. Thanks so much. Thanks for running a little bit of fun. Really appreciate it.